Let's now go to the courts in Pretoria. Today, Forensic Officer Thabo Mosia dismissing parts of his colleague Philani Ndlovu's statement, this during the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, which resumed today with that first witness. Ndlovu now was one of the first police officers on the scene of the shooting of the former Bafana Bafana goalkeeper. But of course, Ndlovu has since died. Thabo Mosia, forensic officer, was cross-examined by the lawyer for accused number 5, Advocate Zandile Msholoolo. Reporter Silindelo Masikane following the court proceedings, joining us now. Slee, thank you so much for joining us. You know, there was a lot of interesting developments, lots of detail. One, for example, Advocate Msholoolo winning the right to use the so-called hearsay evidence of this deceased officer. But for me, the bigger picture was a very troubling one of how police dropped the ball on a night with a case that they had to have known was going to be massively high profile. Just paint it out for us.
Yeah, we're of course hearing some hearsay evidence late this afternoon, Sally, in terms of the cross-examination of Sergeant Thabo Mosia. You would remember that we have the infamous docket 375 that's at play here. And we know, of course, that in that particular docket there are a completely different set of facts in terms of what transpired on that evening. But what Advocate Zandile Msholoolo was trying to put to Sergeant Mosia in terms of introducing this hearsay evidence was to show the court that there are some conflicting statements in terms of how evidence was collected and how Mosia actually found himself at the crime scene. For much of Mosia's evidence in chief, he referred a lot to who we came to know as Brigadier Ndlovu. But at the time of his passing, he was a general. This was earlier this year. He was the head of the detective unit here in Gauteng, and he had deposed an affidavit in relation to docket 375, where he said in his statement in that docket that in no way did he assist Mosia in gathering the evidence and showing him where to take photographs. And in fact, he said that in his initial call to Mosia, he had indicated to him that he indicated the address of the crime scene, and in fact just disputes a lot of what Mosia says in his evidence in chief. But of course, before we could hear from this particular statement, Judge Maumela had to make a ruling in terms of Mshololo's application to have this hearsay evidence admitted. And in his ruling, he stressed the fact that there are a lot of eyes watching this case. It's a high-profile case. The judiciary, the justice system itself, its integrity is at stake. And so he believed that it was in the interest of justice to actually allow Mshololo to admit this hearsay evidence. Let's take a listen to his ruling.
The court ruled that the statement by Brigadier Ndlovu shall be read. Amongst others, the reason why the court ruled as such has to do with the interest of justice. That we have heard about the first and the second docket. This statement is about or was made by somebody who was even responsible for directing you.
All right, so let's delve into what is contained in the deceased General Ndlovu's statement, because this is where the mismatch of testimony seems to start coming in. You know, there was a dispute around whether Thabo Mosia was actually given the address of the crime scene. He ended up at the hospital at first, from what we heard today. And also the fact that he had to leave the crime scene once he got there, eventually, because there were other crime scenes he had to attend to as the forensic officer. I mean, it is not painting a great picture of the police, is it?
It's really showing you just how the matter that was, how this case was handled in terms of the investigations level. It shows you that there are some serious issues when it comes to the procedures, I think, when it comes to how police handle these crime scenes. Because a lot of the issues that are coming out, Sally, is the fact that we had various task teams, we had politicians on the scenes, we had so many people who had potentially contaminated the crime scene before Sergeant Mosia could even arrive at the crime scene. So what Mshololo, I think, is doing by introducing the statement is one, of course, poking holes in the state's case against her clients, in particular accused number 5. Already, for most of cross-examination, sadly, we have seen that there are issues around tampering. There are allegations that there's a possibility that evidence was planted because Mosia came to the crime scene on 2 occasions, and in the first occasion had taken photographs, collected some fingerprints, and seemingly on the second occasion, only then was he able to collect a bullet fragment which was found on one of the countertops in the kitchen. So the defense just doing its best to not only defend their clients, but show that there are major issues with the forensic evidence itself. But let's take a listen to Mshololo putting it to Mosia about the contradictions in the statement with regards to the phone call that was made to Mosia, which he says he never received an address to, but also the fact that General Ndlovu, of course, disputes that he had anything to do with the collection of forensic evidence. Let's take a listen.
I did not point any scene or exhibits to him as I was not in charge of the scene.
Ke nahana hore phoso e teng, nna nka ikarabella ka hore o laba a signa scene report ya ka ho bontsha hore ke fumane yena, and then ka sebetsa ntho tsohle tse ne ke di etsa crime scene o na a nshebile.
Okay. I think there is a mistake that happened there because in my
scene report.
In my scene report, he is the one who even signed to confirm that he was with me at the scene of crime, and he was the one who was assisting and pointing out to me some of the things that were at the scene of crime.
All right, so that's cross-examination underway again today, and of course we're still on that first state witness. Thank you so much for wrapping up today's events in the Pretoria High Court with the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. That's our reporter, Silindelo Masikane. Now